flash Game Week 9 review, because of course we're only halfway through the game week right now, but can't lie, I don't know whether it was the clocks changing or a bad night's sleep, but I was restless, debating about my team, what to do, and all of a sudden I remembered I have a wildcard available, and the panic started to set in on whether I need to activate it tonight going into game week 10, and I need your guys' help. So today we are going to be touching on why I might be wildcarding in game week 10 and why Erling Haaland might be leaving my team, and we need to talk about exactly whether that is a good move or not. We're also going to be reflecting on the games that we've had so far in game week 9, talking about those players that have delivered, whether we should be actually jumping on those players that had a fantastic game week 9, whether it was just a bit of a flash in the pan, and whether we can cool off a little bit and reassess after a few game weeks. And of course, the most important thing, answering any of your early questions going into game week 10. But a quick reminder, if you didn't know already, we've only had half of the games in game week 9. So if you're planning on making transfers, please do hold off for now until we've had all of the games out of the way, and then we can reassess. But of course, with me having the wildcard available, I can be a bit more aggressive. So I need to talk about that today because I'm not happy with my team. I'm going to be honest with you. I looked at it this morning and it ain't looking good. So we're going to touch on that. But first and foremost, let me know, guys, if you're tuning in. Where in the world are you tuning in from? It'd be awesome to see. Obviously, on this Sunday morning, wherever you are in the world, let me know in the chat. As always, Immortal Technique, hope you're doing well, mate. Frederick saying another good week for non-Haaland owners, which it absolutely was. We're going to touch on those underlying numbers for Erling Haaland because I know a lot of people triple captained him, of course, just generally captained him. And it felt like it was very, very unlucky for those that did triple captain, because on another day, it could have been a hat trick easily. And when you actually watch back that game, you think to yourself, wow, how did he not deliver more points in that game? FM Gel saying rank, currently ranked 1.3 million in the world. Small green arrow, I think it's about 1.3. I will check it out. Small green arrow, obviously off the back of Mbuemo, thankfully delivering that 15-pointer. But of course, some blanks for my Aston Villa players, which wasn't ideal at all. Boy in the Water saying, you know what happens when we take Haaland outright? Blank after blank, but the second he leaves our teams, it'll be back-to-back hat-tricks until we put him back in again. And that is exactly my debate right now. With the fixtures coming up, with away games, and we're going to touch on this in a minute, it does feel like the opportunity maybe to be a little bit different and swing against Erling Haaland. I know some people out there like Planet FPL James has had an unbelievable start to the season and hasn't owned Erling Haaland in any of the game weeks. So he's a perfect example of how you still can build a great team, have great game weeks, and not have Erling Haaland in your team. And I feel like it could be a good opportunity to swing against him. But again, I will be touching on that in today's video. Frederick saying they swapped out DCL for Visser, and I've never been happier. Unbelievable work there. Because if you could compare two performances, Visser being clinical in front of goal compared to, it wasn't even Calvert-Lewin being clinical. It was just a terrible performance from Calvert-Lewin in general. And I feel like beforehand with Calvert-Lewin, everybody's been getting disappointed, but you see in the underlying numbers and you're thinking to yourself, yeah, but it's going to come. That game was just woeful from Everton in general, and they were so lucky to come out of that game with a draw. I think any other day Fulham walk away with a victory there. Tor, hope you're doing well. Very good weekend, hope you're having a good one as well. Bit weird with the clocks going back for anybody that's obviously in the UK, waking up feeling fresh at like 6 a.m. I'm thinking, what is going on at all? Morning from sunny Leicester, Tony, hope you're well, mate. Morning, sir. Hope you're well. Can I see your team as I missed out yesterday? Yeah, 100% we'll touch on my team currently and how it's getting on. But again, let me know where you're tuning in the world. And of course, if you're not already and you're enjoying it, make sure you do subscribe to the channel. It's always massively appreciated. Had a bit of a Sunday morning off, so I thought to myself, what better time than to come on here right now and touch on my team, go through the games, and more importantly, actually talk about what is going on with my wildcard, because there is a real solid chance I do activate it, and I really do need to touch on that. So loads of other people in the chat. We got Charlie, hope you're well. Tuning for Bahrain, my friend, hope you're doing well. Awesome to see there. Perfect. Right, let's get into some stuff. Because first and foremost, we need to talk about my general team. We need to talk about my general team, and why I might be debating it. So for those asking about my current team, currently on 43 points, 1.3 million in the world. I made 3 transfers. So for anyone that's interested, the 3 transfers that I made was really early on in the week. I sold Bukayo Saka and brought in Mbeumo. I just felt like that was the absolute move that I needed to make, especially with the uncertainty of Bukayo Saka and Mbeumo's price increasing. And obviously, thank God I made that move. Robertson out for Collins. That was just a move that I needed to make to facilitate the Diogo Jota to Cole Palmer move. Collins very much was just a 3 game week punt in my original plans, where I was going to wildcard in game week 12, and I felt, obviously a little bit controversially, but Collins was good for a clean sheet against Ipswich, which didn't happen. I felt like he was good for game week 11 as well against Bournemouth. The other player that I was considering was Nori, and I really was close to doing it, but I just backed the Brentford defence more than that of Wolves. And I ended up being both a terrible defensively, but Nori was the one that got the goal. But anybody that watched that game for Brentford will know that Collins missed an absolute sitter. And on another day, Collins bags, because you can see here, XG of 0.5. He literally missed from 5 yards out. So on another day, Collins does just as much as Nori, and I walk away a happy boy. So is what it is. I'm not going to be stressing about it. But 43 points. Henderson still to play against Spurs. He is not keeping a clean sheet. Absolutely not. Then we got Trent away against Arsenal. Again, it will be what it will be. Realistically, with the idea of Saka now actually being available, ideal world is that Saka blanks and we do get the Liverpool clean sheet coming in. Palmer and Eze. Now, this most likely will be Eze's last time in my team. He has been the most painful hold, and I'm getting slight PTSD right now with Eze because I'd done this last season with both Rashford and Bruno Fernandes. Anybody that played last season will know that Man United had an unbelievable start to the season in terms of fixtures, but both Rashford and Bruno Fernandes just continued to not deliver. But I stuck faith with both of those, and I'm doing the same thing with Eze right now. It's last chance saloon for him. At home against Spurs, I actually think it's an okay fixture for him. And it's worth noting, the fixtures are actually okay over the coming game weeks. But another blank from him, and even if I wildcard, there is no world that I'll be putting him into my team if we do see another blank. So 43 points, small green arrow, hoping we get something from Eze as my differential, and maybe a Crystal Palace clean sheet, but that isn't going to happen. So coming into game week 10 right now for my team, you can see it on your screens right now, and I'm not in love with it, I'm going to be honest with you. Now, just to give you a bit of context, we've got 0.5 million in the bank, 1 free transfer basically, so very little flexibility with the team. Henderson continues to be a problem. Away against Wolves, I'm not expecting a clean sheet there again. Robinson at home against Brentford, which is actually okay, but when you own a Brentford attacker, it just never looks good. Then we got Lewis away against Bournemouth, and then we got Trent at home against Brighton. So it's not the end of the world in terms of the defence. Midfield, Rodgers away against Spurs does not look great. Mbeumo against my defence. Palmer away against Man United, which is fine. Eze away against Wolves, which some would argue is terrible, but I still think that's an okay fixture for Eze. And then Smith Rowe at home against Brentford, which again, I don't think is a terrible fixture at all. But Smith Rowe, one of those players I just can't trust the minutes each and every game week for 90. Then Watkins away against Spurs. Is that actually a terrible fixture? Probably not. I think we could see some returns for Watkins in that fixture. And then Haaland away against Bournemouth, which is proving to be quite a difficult fixture for a lot of teams that have travelled to Bournemouth. Those that are Chelsea fans like myself will know winning at Bournemouth isn't always easy. So we obviously did pick up the 3 points, just saying, in Kunku. So into my team right now, the reason why I'm deliberating using my wildcard right now is just to be aggressive, just to be really aggressive with the upcoming game weeks, because I feel like my team is very stagnant right now. I think I have some good players in the sense of Mbeumo, Cole Palmer, Haaland, Watkins, Trent, but I feel like with these upcoming fixtures, I can be even more aggressive and capitalise on the opportunity of me still having the wild card available. As I spoke about, I planned on originally using it in game week 12, but I'm not absolutely locked in on using it in game week 12, and we'll touch on that when we come on to the fixtures and how my current wildcard team would look. So just to give you an idea on what a wildcard team for me would look like, and again, there are lots of positions that could change, but we're going to go through each week to show you how it would progress. This is how a potential wildcard team would look for me. And I'm just going to bring it up on my own screen as well so I can see it. So just to talk through some of my plans here. And again, lots of these players can change. I think a lot of these positions are up for grabs. Long-term wise, I don't think there are any amazing goalkeepers. So I think I would naturally default to just bringing Raya in. For the team, away against Newcastle is not ideal, but I think eventually we know that the fixtures for Raya are just going to get good. Game week 12 onwards, I think there are clean sheets to be had, and I think it would be ridiculous for me to wildcard this week and then not go into that situation. So Raya in between the sticks. In terms of the defenders, I think really a lot of these positions are up for grabs, but Robertson at home against Brighton, I think I'd probably be looking to bring him in for a couple of weeks. I think there's opportunities in these next 3 weeks. Liverpool, one of the best defences in the league. I personally think Robertson is good at this price point, and you'll see later on how having someone at his price point is actually quite useful. Nori, I think, just a lock for anybody that is wildcarding with these upcoming fixtures. I'm going to be honest, I still don't rate Wolves. I don't rate Nori much as a pick, but we saw that he does offer some attacking potential, and I think Wolves are still really playing for Gary O'Neill, so I still think Nori is a good pick. And Pedro Porro for these next 2 weeks. Again, if I'm going to wildcard in this week, I have to be aggressive and target the fixtures that we have in front of us. And I think Pedro Porro is a perfect example of that. And another example of why I do think, even if you held him, game week 13 is also a great fixture for him. So you don't have to sell him in game week 12. In terms of those defenders, Robinson currently in because I still think Fulham are okay. And I think these are actually decent-ish fixtures for him. And Vandenberg just in there as a cheap enabler. And he is getting good minutes for Brentford. Now, in terms of the midfielders, you're going to see right now there's no Erling Haaland in this team. I think if you are going to wildcard in game week 10, you absolutely have to take on Erling Haaland. And with that in itself is a massive risk. Now, in terms of my midfielders, if you're not going to go Erling Haaland, you absolutely have to build a Mo Salah team. That is just absolutely imperative. So the reason why I think Mo Salah is the man to go for, and of course we need to assess after today what is going on, but Brighton at home in game week 10 I think is fantastic. I think that is an unbelievable fixture for Mo Salah. Game week 11 against Aston Villa. Again, Aston Villa, a team that I don't really rate defensively all the time, and I do think Liverpool can get them in that fixture. And then game week 12. Now, this is the one that I need to talk about in a bit, but everybody is talking about how you need to wildcard in game week 12 and you need to build a team that has Arsenal at the heart of it. But Mo Salah away against Southampton or Bukayo Saka at home against Nottingham Forest, I want Mo Salah every day of the week in that situation. I don't think game week 12 is actually a fantastic fixture for Arsenal attackers. You can see it here for game week 12. Nottingham Forest at home is okay defensively, but I really don't love it in terms of actually attacking options. I think game week 13 is actually the week where I'll be looking to bring in Arsenal assets from an offensive perspective. So that's why I think Mo Salah is actually a player that we're going to be holding for at least the next 3 game weeks and then reassess in game week 13. Cole Palmer, I think if you wildcard, just has to be in there categorically. With the situation with Son right now, I think there's a lot of red flags. He was injured, he came back for 1 game, injured again. I don't think we could put a lot of confidence on Son and his guaranteed minutes. So that's why I've avoided Son in this team and I've brought in Cole Palmer for those long-term fixtures. Mbeumo is just an absolute lock regardless. We saw that in yesterday's game. Then we've gone for a couple of interesting ones. Now, I think if you're going to wildcard, as I spoke about, you need to be aggressive on Spurs to capitalise. And I still think Brennan Johnson is a fantastic option for our teams. 3 million cheaper than Son, guaranteed minutes, high XG in every game that he's playing. I really think he's been overlooked now that Son has had that great game week. So I'll be more than confident to have Johnson and save 3 million. And then when you wildcard, you always need these fun picks. And I need to watch Man United today. But I think Garnacho is one that I really would consider. Chelsea at home, I think Man United, if they actually play smart and they play transitional football, they could hurt Chelsea. I really do believe that. Then Leicester at home, Ipswich away and Everton at home. I think they're really good fixtures for Man United. Don't get me wrong, Man United are awful, but I rate Garnacho, and when he plays, he puts up fantastic numbers. So Garnacho is currently on the radar. Then in terms of the front three, Currently got Cunha, who I think is just an absolute lock for anybody that would be looking to wildcard in game week 10. Absolutely. I just think, let's not get carried away. The goal that he scored yesterday was a little bit of a fluke, deflection up into the roof of the net, but I still think he is the main man in this Wolves team. Then we got Dominic Solanke away against Aston Villa. Again, we need to assess him after today's game, but if I can't get to Son because I just don't trust his minutes, I still want a piece of the Spurs attack who I know is going to get guaranteed minutes. I know people are worried about Solanke, but I still think for the next 2 games, he is brilliant. And again, you can even keep him long term if you want to, but the other one is going to be Raul Jimenez. Currently in this team, but we could equally go for someone like a Johan Visser, who had his brilliant return from injury in yesterday's game. So there's a lot of flexibility with this team, but what I really do like is that it has Mo Salah, it has a lot of exciting differentials in it, and it targets the upcoming games. Now, obviously, we need to talk about a few things. No Erling Haaland. That is a huge problem. Now, when we come down to the fixtures for Man City, you can see them just here. Bournemouth away is proven to be a tricky game for any team that goes there. So even though I think Haaland could score in any game, he literally could score a hat-trick in any fixture, I feel okay about attacking against Haaland in that game. Then Brighton away obviously is an opportunity for Erling Haaland to go big. But we need to remember that Mo Salah also has that fixture at home. So while Haaland has it in game week 11, Mo Salah has it in game week 10. So I think you get the best of both worlds there. I think Mo Salah has it and he plays at home. Then, of course, we have Spurs at home for Haaland. I think that's a good fixture as well, let's be real. And then Liverpool away. And even Nottingham Forest in game week 14 isn't an amazing fixture for Erling Haaland. Then they've got Crystal Palace, Man United, and then eventually you're going to need Erling Haaland back in your team. But we can start to pivot the team into an Erling Haaland team as we progress throughout the weeks. But I think there is an opportunity to actually swing against Erling Haaland in these coming weeks. So just to talk about how my team would look in the future weeks, as an example, coming into game week 11, this is how the kind of bust team would look. Rare away against Chelsea, not great, but as I spoke about, the goalkeeper will just be there for the long term. Robertson at home against Villa, I think is fine. Nori at home against Southampton, fine. And Pedro Porro at home against Ipswich will look great. The midfield, I don't think anybody needs to be transferred out of that team. And then Solanke at home against Ipswich and Cunha at home against Southampton. So the general team looks good. The strength and depth looks good if there was any random rotation. The only thing about it in game week 11, of course, is if Son is available, I don't have arguably the best captaincy pick, but would I be that scared to put the captaincy on Mohamed Salah in game week 11? Absolutely not. So I think there are still great opportunities for captaincy in this week, and game week 11 looks really, really strong. Now, I always have to ask myself, what does game week 11 look like that I don't own? Well, I don't have any Arsenal attackers, but away against Chelsea I think could prove fruitful for Arsenal. But is it absolutely imperative for me to bring in Arsenal assets for that week? I think the answer is going to be no. Then we look at the rest of the games. Villa away against Liverpool, I'm fine not having someone like an Ollie Watkins. I've got Brentford assets for that game against Bournemouth. Don't have any Crystal Palace, but if Eze hurts me in that game, I have you guys to blame because you guys are the ones killing me in the comments section. Outside of that, who am I really missing? I've got Liverpool. Yes, I haven't got any Man City away against Brighton, and of course you can't own them all, and that is probably the one that really would be quite painful. But then we got a bit of Man United against Leicester, which could be a fantastic differential. I don't want any Newcastle away against Nottingham Forest. I could have Chris Wood, but I feel like I've missed the boat with Chris Wood, basically. And then I've got all the good stuff. Outside of that, I've got the Spurs, I've got the Wolves. I don't really trust West Ham that much. So then we come into game week 12, and you have to roll the transfer with this team 100%. Then we come into game week 12, and I think the team still looks fantastic. So Rare at home against Forest, this is the first thing we need to address, because a lot of people are saying game week 12, you have to have triple Arsenal. And I do agree, triple Arsenal is probably the way to go. Double Arsenal defence, Bukayo Saka in midfield. But honestly, if you sit there right now and watching this, and you look at my midfield and you see Cole Palmer away against Leicester and Mo Salah away against Southampton, does anyone honestly think they would prefer Bukayo Saka at home against Nottingham Forest? then either of those two premiums. I'll be really interested to know, let me know in the comments, who you prefer. Saka at home against Forest or Palmer away against Leicester and Salah. I think Saka is third on that list, 100%. I think Forest have proven themselves to be resolute defensively. And I really don't think I can confidently sit here and say to you, you know, Saka is an absolute essential hold in that week. So I think those premiums are good for one more game week. Then, of course, we got Garnacho away against Ipswich, can be what it will be. We got good forwards in that fixture. So it comes back to it in game week 12. What am I missing? So if we come down to game week 12, and remember, this is the week where a lot of people are going to be wildcarded into teams. But I don't think anyone that wildcards in game week 12 is going to put Mo Salah in their team. And that is the big reason why I'm debating using my wildcard right now. It's because I can get Mo Salah for those 3 game weeks where I think he really could do very well, and then look to pivot away from Mo Salah in game week 13. So game week 12, yes, I haven't got Arsenal, but I think defensively is where I would want them rather than offensively for that specific game week. Villa could be time to bring in Ollie Watkins, hence why I used Dominic Solanke as a bit of a price point holder in this team to allow myself to go to Watkins if I want to. Then we've got Bournemouth at home against Brighton. I'm not that fussed about having any of those assets. Chelsea already have someone like a Cole Palmer, and I could easily bring in someone like a Nicholas Jackson if I want to. Got the best Liverpool option away against Southampton. I've got my Man United if I really think they are essential. And I don't have any Man City at home against Spurs. But again, am I that desperate? Maybe not. Maybe not. Spurs have an okay record against City. So I think here, what would be quite a priority in game week 12 is allow myself to get to Arsenal assets. So one thing that I could do, for example, is look to sell Pedro Porro and bring in someone like a Gabriel. But I actually think what would be a bit more exciting maybe is getting rid of a Robertson and bringing in, let's just say Saliba for now because he's slightly cheaper, and bringing in my double Arsenal defence. And then, of course, we have a few problems. We have Johnson away against Man City, which is not ideal at all. But I think the one that I would be looking to probably sell is going to be Dominic Solanke. And I think what I could do with this team is actually be even more aggressive and look to go for someone like an Ollie Watkins for that home fixture against Crystal Palace. It would mean that I could then bench Johnson for that fixture. I would be using both of my transfers in game week 12. But then I think, and honestly guys, let me know in the comments what you think. That is a strong team. Let me know what your thoughts are. But just to give you an idea, game week 10 wildcard would look like this. I think it's a strong team. It has Mo Salah, Cole Palmer, decent front three with those fixtures, good base defence. Then in game week 11, team would look like this, rolling the transfer. Again, we got no Man City against Brighton, but I think Mo Salah against Aston Villa is fantastic. And then coming into game week 12, just to give you an idea, you can see the summary at the top right. Robertson to Saliba, Solanke to Watkins, and the team would look something like this. Double Arsenal defence. I've spoken about it. I don't think Bukayo Saka is essential for this specific game week when you own Cole Palmer and Mo Salah. And making those moves that I spoke about of doing Dominic Solanke to Watkins means that I've got arguably one of the best forwards for that week alongside Raul Jimenez and Cunha. And I think that team looks great with 2 transfers made. Then coming into game week 13, just to show you what the team would look like. Raya, I just think always looks good, so that is fine. We can have Pedro Porro at home against Fulham, which I think is a good fixture for him, in a sense. Vandenberg, I could use him for my one game at home against Leicester. Aït-Nouri at home against Bournemouth, but again, let's be real. If I've got Saliba in my team, he obviously is coming in, most likely for Vandenberg, and I'm just going to play him in that game. Midfield 5 of Mbeumo, Palmer, Garnacho, Mo Salah and Brennan Johnson. And then we, of course, got Ollie Watkins and Cunha up top. Again, Watkins is very much a player that would come back in as a long-term perspective rather than just the Chelsea away game, which obviously doesn't look great. And it's worth noting, this Watkins position could easily be someone like a Kai Havertz. The problem with Kai Havertz, you then block yourself a Bukayo Saka in midfield. And coming into game week 13, if you're sat there right now thinking, Nacho, you need Bukayo Saka in this week away against West Ham. Well, lo and behold, this is the time where maybe I start to move away from Mo Salah. Man City at home, Newcastle away. Then they got some nice fixtures there. But if you guys really think Bukayo Saka is essential in that week, then an easy move of Mo Salah down to Bukayo Saka for the away game against West Ham. I feel like that is the entry point that I really would want Bukayo Saka for. Now, of course, if he scores a hat-trick today, I'm just going to put my hands up and say I need him back in. But I think I can actually run without Bukayo Saka for a few weeks and bring him in for that West Ham game and then give myself 2.7 million in the bank. Then coming into game week 14, this will be the last week, guys, in terms of this wildcard. Just to show you the fixtures here. Man City start to go on their good run by now. Nottingham Forest at home. Then, of course, we've got some other good fixtures out there like Aston Villa. I've got that with Ollie Watkins. I think the team looks good here. I think Robinson could easily come in for anybody that I want. Garnacho could start to leave my team around this period if he really doesn't look great value. Raul continues to be a fantastic option, and I could simply do something like that. And the team looks great for game week 14, and I think that team could even be rolled. I look at the fixtures and I think, who am I missing? I've got my Arsenal. I've got Ollie Watkins for that great game against Brentford. I've got Cole Palmer. Who else is there? I haven't got my Man City, albeit against Nottingham Forest, who are proven to be a tough team to break down. So I think the team looks great. And if I can have the flexibility of rolling my transfer in game week 14, we come to game week 15, and then we need to ask ourselves, is it time to bring back Erling Haaland? And of course, in order to bring back Erling Haaland, you always have to make big sacrifices in your team, but so be it. I think this is the week where you could inevitably look to bring him back in for the Crystal Palace game and where we maybe deem him an essential pick. How we would get there, we would address it when we get to that situation, but simple moves could be made. Watkins probably would have to be upgraded, but with the home game against Southampton, how the hell can you get rid of him in that week? So let me know your thoughts on the wildcard if you've been tuning in, guys. Just to give you an update, that is how we are looking, and I really do think that is a fantastic wildcard team for the future game weeks. I'll be super interested to know what your thoughts are. Now, let me know in the chat, guys. Were you one of those managers that wildcarded before, or have you wildcarded previous? Let me get it in the poll right now. Let me know in that poll, guys. Have you used your wildcard already, and are you tempted to do so this week if you have not? As you can see, I am very tempted this week to use my wildcard to pivot to a team like this and go without Erling Haaland. But we're going to touch on some numbers now, which are safe to say a little bit scary if you do plan to go without Erling Haaland. So this here are the stats for the season so far. Sorry, I tell a lie. These are the stats for game week 9 in isolation. Oh, it was a great point here by Che. Why on earth are you avoiding Wood and even Welbeck? That's a great question. So if we bring up the fixtures first and foremost for Wood and even Welbeck, well, Wood for the next few fixtures obviously is fantastic. West Ham at home, Newcastle at home, Arsenal, Ipswich. I mean, you make a great point. Wood probably should come in as opposed to someone like a Raul if we can afford it. Welbeck, on the other hand, I think that is a complete avoid right now. The reason being is, if we take a look at the fixtures, Liverpool away, followed by Man City at home, and then Bournemouth away, that is not a territory that you want to go to right now with someone like Welbeck. So I wouldn't be looking to use Welbeck as an option, but I do agree. Am I being a bit naive and thinking that Chris Wood's run is eventually going to end? But when we take a look at some of the numbers, I do think it'll be interesting to see. So Erling Haaland, first and foremost. Anybody that triple captained Erling Haaland, you have had torrid luck. Let's just be real here. Yes, these numbers are ridiculous. 8 shots, 4 of those on target, 2.39 expected goals. He had an expected FPL points of 11.54. He ended up getting 6 points. Honestly, guys, if I had my triple captain on this week, I'd be spitting feathers because that is probably, I think it's the second highest XG that he's produced in a single game. So you can just count yourselves Very, very unlucky. If you did triple captain Erling Haaland in your team and he didn't deliver the monster returns, obviously for those of us that did obviously avoid the triple captain, we got very lucky. That is just how it is. So let me put up a quick poll because I need to know. And 75% of you have said that you've used your wildcard. Only 25% have said no. And that is another reason why I think using my wildcard this week could actually be quite exciting to pivot towards a direction that other managers might be taking points hits to do so. So, did you triple captain Haaland? Super interested to know. Let me know in that poll, did you triple captain Haaland? But as you can see, with these numbers, you got incredibly unlucky. Now, another player that's getting a lot of talk right now is going to be Bryan Mbeumo, of course. We knew he was a phenomenal asset. Rose in price again to 7.7. 4 shots, 3 of those on target, 0.91 expected goals. Obviously, one of those being a penalty, so about 0.7 of that XG is actually the penalty. The other one is going to be, of course, his other chances that he had. But of course, one of those was a cross, let's be real. But decent underlying numbers for Mbeumo. And while he remains in this Brentford team, I think he just is, quote unquote, essential for your teams. Maybe not bringing him in this week, but I still think he is phenomenal. Now, take a look at the other players. This is based on just those that put up the best XG. We're going to ignore Ross Barkley, but a player that is getting a lot of talk right now is going to be Johan Visser. Now, played the 90 minutes, which is really surprising because he was injured. I was expecting him to come in and maybe do 60 minutes, but maybe with the game state situation with Brentford where it was so up and down, they were losing, then they got it back to 3-2, then they needed to chase a goal. That's probably why Visser stayed on for the full 90 minutes, because historically, he has been a little bit of a player that comes in and out of that team in terms of 65 minutes, 75 minutes. 0.86 expected goals, 4 shots, 3 of those on target. And the one thing I will say about this as well, we always talk about stats, but first and foremost, I am a football man. And this guy is a million times better of a finisher than Calvert-Lewin. So we all talk about Calvert-Lewin and we all tell about how he's getting amazing numbers. But if Visser had the chances that Calvert-Lewin was getting, trust me, Visser would put away half of the chances that Calvert-Lewin has had. Anybody that watches football will know that Visser is just a great finisher in general. Didn't necessarily need to be a great finisher in yesterday's games, but if you give him chances, the boy will score. He's proven that in this Brentford team year in, year out. So Visser, I really do think is a great option for our teams. When we take a look at the fixtures for Brentford, just to see them just here, you can see Fulham away, Bournemouth at home, Leicester at home in game week 13. I think they always have a good fixture, and I think if you do bring in Visser, you're going to really struggle to sell him because every other week he's got a great fixture, and you're looking at it and think, oh, I need him for that, I need him for that. So Visser is great. I really do think he's a fantastic option for our teams if you want to go there. Now, Chris Wood went off of a slight knock, but I think we all expect him to be absolutely fine. 0.75 expected goals. He had 3 shots. Decent numbers. He's always putting up good numbers, but we're going to touch on Wood in a minute just to show you how mad his finishing has been this season. But anybody that's owned Chris Wood, it just seemed like a no-brainer, didn't it? And why we didn't put him in at the start of the season is beyond me. I was one of those that put in Muniz, and that proved to be the worst decision I think I've made in many, many years in my FPL tenure. So good numbers for Wood in terms of expected goals, but the shot volume was not fantastic. A lot of people talking about Danny Welbeck, 4 shots, 1 of those on target, 0.62 expected goals, but the guy continues to deliver in that Brighton team. But as I discussed, for me, Brighton are not a buy right now. Liverpool away, Man City at home. I just don't think it is the time to be bringing in those kind of players for your FPL teams at all. But I appreciate Welbeck has been one of the standout forwards this season. Outside of that, I just have to bring in Collins because he is one of those players that I brought in. Everybody went crazy about 8 Nori, and fair play to those that bring in 8 Nori. But as you can see, Collins had the big chance. 0.41 XG. Anyone that's seen it, he missed from about 5 yards out. It was killer, and that could have really been the icing on the cake for this game week for myself. But is what it is. We bring in Collins for the clean sheets, and clearly that did not happen. So that is how we're looking for Game Week 9 in isolation. Outside of that, Delap for his cameo was unbelievable. You start to beg the question why they didn't start him in that game. And Raul still putting up really good numbers. 4 shots, but really, this guy is such a well-rounded asset. 0.35 expected goals, 0.46 expected assists. Really, really good underlying numbers for him. And I still think he's a great option for those managers that are looking at cheap forwards in the game. And to be honest with you, we are just really blessed with cheap forwards this year. If we take a look at the numbers for forwards, and really I want to be looking at those that have played decent minutes, but to be fair, a lot of those are appearing on our list here. So if we drop the numbers and we come down to below 7 million forwards, because there really are some tasty ones. Wood, Raul, Welbeck, Visser, these guys, Cunha's coming into the mixer. If we just take a look at those for now, because I think those are probably the standouts. Let me know if I've missed anyone on that list. I'll put Calvert-Lewin in, I guess. These are basically the big boys, the ones that below 7 million that have just been phenomenal value this season. So if we do it based on per 90 minutes, because we have got differing here, Visser, when he plays, is just a joke. 0.84 expected goals per 90. He really is probably the differential forward if you want to jump on the next big one. Raul, as you can see, is the one that's really interesting because I'm going to filter it right now by expected FPL points, and he suddenly jumps to the top. The reason being is he is very similar to Cunha, where he is just generally a fantastic footballer. He is going to create for this Fulham team, and he is going to score goals for this Fulham team. And if he is on penalties still, because of course we don't know yet with Pereira taking one, we don't really know who is the penalty taker. He remains an incredible, well-rounded asset. But if we're talking about just goals, Visser, then Raul, then Chris Wood at 0.61 expected goals per 90. Then we got Danny Welbeck, and then of course Calvert-Lewin, followed by Cunha, which is something that we do need to talk about because Cunha is not one of those players that I think is going to be scoring braces and hat-tricks. I think that is more in Visser's territory, but I do think Cunha right now, if we take a look at FPL and we look at bonus points per 90, Cunha at 1.14, but I really do believe he is one of those players that just accumulates fantastic bonus points. And I do think he is going to continue when the fixtures get good for Wolves to be a monster in terms of the bonus points going forward. Now, one thing we do need to look at is in terms of shots to goals, because as you can see here, 27 shots for Cunha, only 4 goals, 25 for Welbeck. Chris Wood down here, 19 shots, 7 goals. So this bloke is banging. Now, is it going to be sustainable? I think the answer is probably not. But when we take a look at actually the general shots that they're taking, Chris Wood here, 19 shots, 17 of those in the box. All of these players are box players. Cunha is probably the one that isn't. 27 shots, 19 of those in the box. So I would say that with someone like a Cunha, he very much is a player that does have that worldie in him. Whereas I look at the others, Welbeck has it in his capacity as well. But I think all the others are probably very much the case of being the man between the posts. Cunha drops in, picks up the ball, has shots from range. To be fair, we did see that from Chris Wood as well, but he's only had 2 shots from outside the box, and one of those, of course, was the winner against Crystal Palace. So all of these are putting up fantastic numbers. A lot of their shots are in the box, which is brilliant. Calvert-Lewin's numbers are still fantastic. So I really do think if you want to go for any of these, you absolutely can do so. Now, there are some really good points in terms of, do we look at Dominic Solanke or do we actually just completely avoid him? So we need to start dropping in some of these players that are slightly more expensive. And we need to ask ourselves the question, is it actually worth spending more on these players in premium teams? Or can we just accommodate our teams with these cheap enablers? So what we're going to do, we're going to drop in Kai Havertz, because I think he will come back on the menu soon. We're going to put in Nicholas Jackson. And we're going to put in Dominic Solanke, because I think that's really the ones that we are considering right now. So hopefully that is clear on your list here right now. Let me know, guys, on your screens. Is this looking good or bad? Just put good. If it's fine on your mobile device or desktop, let me know. If it's bad, just put bad. I'll give it 20 seconds just to see what you guys think. But this obviously is a lot stats heavy, so you need to make sure you can actually see the numbers on your screen. I will try and improve it. So just put good if it's good, put bad if it's bad. And I'll just quickly read some of the questions right now. Thoughts on Jorginho Rutter? Looking good, but we need to get a status on João Pedro, because once he's fit, there could be slight rotation with Jorginho Rutter. And with the fixtures coming up, I don't think it is the entry point for a Brighton attacker, personally. Che's making a good point about why don't you just bench Welbeck? I agree, but with these upcoming 2 games, when you can get someone like a Cunha, I'd much rather just go there, to be honest with you. Bournemouth and Brighton have great runs from Game Week 12, absolutely. That is one argument for going for the Game Week 12 wildcard, 100%. But I do look at Bournemouth and think to myself, outside of someone like a Semenyo, do I really want anyone from Bournemouth? Probably not. Brighton are much more exciting, I would agree. Okay, everyone says it's good, we'll crack on. So I think this is a really interesting argument right now, because we need to start asking the question, do we pay more for the more expensive players, or can we go cheaper? So we again have filtered this by expected goals per 90 minutes. And I want to start to look at the numbers that Nicholas Jackson, Havertz and Solanke are putting up. So Jackson, to be fair to him, still putting up great numbers. 0.71 expected goals per 90. And the big thing as well with Nicholas Jackson is that he's also decent in terms of creativity in this Chelsea team. 0.21 expected assists per 90. So really solid numbers for Jackson, and fair play to him. The only thing about Jackson, next 2 fixtures, one would argue they're tricky, one would argue they're good. I think they're still quite tricky for Chelsea, and Game Week 12 very much the entry point for Nicholas Jackson. Then we got Kai Havertz, an interesting one. 0.66 expected goals per 90, 0.09. So right now, I would argue Nicholas Jackson is probably better value than that of Havertz. And we also need to say to ourselves, what direction are we taking our FPL teams? Is it double Arsenal defence? Because if that is the case, you've only got one spot available for an Arsenal attacker. And I want Bukayo Saka over Havertz every day of the week. So I think with these cheap forwards available and the 8.2 million price bracket of Havertz, I just don't see a world where we go for Kai Havertz when we got these cheap forwards available in the game to us. And I would argue equally good fixtures. Last up, Dominic Solanke, because of course we've touched on the general forwards. 7.7 million. Of course, Spurs' fixtures for the next few are decent. We got Aston Villa at home, we got Ipswich at home, and then we got Fulham at home, I believe, in game week 13. So really good fixtures for Dominic Solanke. 0.64 expected goals per 90 is decent, but again, we got some cheap enablers who are putting up better numbers than him. Now, when we come to the goal, the shots, for example, here, again, I want to pay attention to those players who are actually the premium. So Dominic Solanke has taken 14 shots, 13 of those in the box, and he's had 8 big chances. And big chances is another thing that we do need to obviously filter when we are looking at certain players. But of course, shot volume, Nicholas Jackson, 21 shots, 20 of those in the box is really good numbers. And Kai Havertz, 26 shots, 23 of those in the box. So good numbers by all of these players. The ones that are really standing out like a sore thumb in terms of bad big chances is going to be Cunha with only 2. That is really something that we do need to account for. That Cunha, when he scores his goals, are very much out of his own accord. Big chances wise, he isn't really getting them in this Wolves team, whereas Nicholas Jackson, 10 big chances is ridiculous. And then we've got Havertz, Wood, and even Dominic Solanke. I know a lot of people are saying Solanke isn't worth it, but 8 big chances is still fantastic. The problem, you got a bunch of them on 7 who are 2 million cheaper than him. So to conclude, I think we can write off Havertz. I think there are too many good options at cheaper prices, and I think we want to go double Arsenal at points. So I don't think we can accommodate Kai Havertz in our teams. I think that is just the route that we need to go for. So I really do think, looking at these numbers, Nicholas Jackson remains a fantastic pick for our teams. And then after that, I think it's anyone's game. I think it all comes down to the fixtures and which one you want to go for. But I think all of these are fantastic. I honestly do. Let me know in the comment section, which forward are you looking to bring into your teams? Or generally, who have you been excited with over the opening 9 game weeks? All of these have been fantastic. Typically, I have owned Muniz. So I've had a stinker, to say the least. I have had an absolute stinker. So Let me know, guys, in the chat. Who are your forwards of choice? Who has excited you? Who would you want to go for? I wanted to bring up as well just a little bit of looking at the games in terms of the game state. Crown saying Visit is the man. Don't be sleeping on a Strand Larsen. That's a really interesting one. Let me put in Strand Larsen a minute just for a little bit of a comparison here and how he is doing. That's a really good point. Let's put in Strand Larsen to compare him to his Cunha forward partner, who is $1 million more expensive, remember. So we can see the two of them just here. So in terms of XG per 90 minutes, actually, they've got the same minutes. So let's just leave it how it is. So XG, Cunha still delivered 2.35 compared to Strand Larsen, but big chances have been in Strand Larsen's favour, and Cunha is taking a lot more shots than Strand Larsen as well. So I think it very much comes down to it where I think Strand Larsen is still going to tick over with some points, but if you could afford that additional for Cunha, I think you just do it, because I think the numbers are good enough, the shot volume's fantastic, and he's very good on the bonus points. If we take a look at it here, in terms of the baseline bonus for both of those, Strand Larsen hovering here at 10, Cunha at 68. Just crazy. It's crazy. You can see it here. Strand Larsen, pretty poor. Cunha right at the top there. So, yeah, I think it's all about Cunha right now for these bonus points. He's an absolute monster. And I think if you get him in your teams, I do think he is a good option. Just looking at some of the numbers here for some of the games. Very quick run through here. Brighton versus Wolves. In terms of the generic teams, you can see here 1.61 expected goals for Brighton compared to Wolves is 1.16. A little bit of a smash and grab in the last couple of minutes for Wolves, but it is what it is. They'll take that every day of the week. Very, very naive from Brighton for anyone that saw it. That 4-on-1 that they had, which actually transitioned into a goal from Wolves. Absolutely woeful. And when we take a look at it here in terms of the numbers, any players that truly stand out, Cunha with the most shots, 5 shots, 2 of those on target, and 4 attempted assists. Really, really impressive numbers here. Welbeck continues to be good, as we've spoken about already. Jorginho Rutter, as we can see here, looking okay, but I still am not tempted by him. I still am not tempted by Rutter, especially with these upcoming fixtures for Brighton being so difficult. And Matoma, I think, is always going to remain a player that we just are never going to get to. Maybe game week 12 if you are confident that. In terms of Aït-Nouri, only 1 shot. So those managers that obviously had Aït-Nouri, congratulations, fantastic result. But only 1 shot from him in terms of that, and only 1 attempted assist. So the numbers weren't fantastic for Aït-Nouri, but historically he has been very, very good with his numbers. So I would expect him in terms of the attempted assists to maybe get a little bit better. Shots were always good at points. So I think Aït-Nouri is a great long-term hold for your teams, but I think it was, of course, a little bit lucky that the points came in game week 9. But hey, we'll take him every day of the week. Now, take a look at some of the other games just very, very briefly here. Leicester versus Nottingham Forest, 2.32 expected goals for Forest, fantastic. 0.67 for Leicester. So Leicester just looking pretty damn woeful, to say the least. When we take a look at the actual numbers for the teams, Wood just leading the way, 0.75 expected goals, 3 shots, 2 goals. He's kind of putting them numbers up right now. It ain't going to be sustainable with his conversion rate, but he still remains a brilliant option. As we spoke about with the fixtures coming up, still a great purchase. And look at that, game week 13, Ipswich at home. If you have him, you keep him 100%. Jamie Vardy, the bloke doesn't get many shots. We've seen that, but when he does, they're from the penalty spot or he scores from close range, and he is doing the job for them. Outside of that, nobody can consider from either of these two teams. Now, coming into Villa versus Bournemouth, again, Barkley, Bailey, combining, that's the least relevant fantasy combination I think I've ever seen, apart from that one there. Bloody Barbosa being assisted by Tavernier. Just a dead day. A dead day for bloody FPL options in this game. But when we take a look at the numbers for both teams, Villa, honestly, 1.88 expected goals. Can't believe they didn't walk away with a result here. Bournemouth 0.35. Not good. Shots, I mean, Villa only had 18, 11 for Bournemouth, but let's be real. Villa, every day of the week, usually walk away with the points here. So when we take a look at the numbers, once again, Barkley, I'm just going to ignore that. We're not even considering it. But outside of that, what a drab old game this was. The only reason Villa have got an XG of 1.88 is because Ross Barkley scored from 2 yards out. So honestly, this is a very skewed game because take out the 0.89 for Villa and they literally, the rest of the game was what? Just under 1? So this was a terrible game. It basically was 0.99 XG for Aston Villa. You obviously can't get rid of the Barkley chance in our heads because it happened, but take out that big chance, there is just nothing in this game. Onana with that 0.3. Tielemans just never going to be an option. Watkins very, very quiet. Low expected chances. And my problem here is the minutes. 81 minutes. Rodgers come off early, which is really important to note. But then Watkins come off before the end as well, which is really frustrating. And you look at these minutes here, and I know they are okay, but he's not that 90-minute man every single week, and it is a little bit worrying. And the shot volume isn't great. It does feel like we've gotten a little bit lucky with the returns from Watkins over the past, and I feel like, again, another reason why moving away from him for my team probably is the route to do so. The only other one I really want to look at is Rodgers, because it was just a bad day at the office for Rodgers. Not a good day at all. 1 pointer, 1 shot, still a good option. Still a good option. I think his minutes are good, but I wouldn't really be excited about Rodgers off that performance. And Evan Nielsen, the one that we're all obviously earmarking, but I just don't think we're ever going to really be buying him. 1 shot, but only played 26 minutes, so very, very difficult to really judge anything on him. But I think he's exciting. He's a good player, but the minutes are the problem here. It hasn't completed 90 minutes at all. Last couple of games before we wrap it up. So this is the big one, isn't it? Brighton versus Ipswich. And I really think there are some fascinating options in these teams. And again, guys, if you are enjoying the stream, please do consider dropping a like. Always massively appreciated. We always aim for 50. If we can get to that, that is always amazing. So look at these numbers. 3.28 expected goals. Hopefully you can see that at the end there for Brentford. 1.52 for Ipswich. Really good game. Really, really good game. Brentford just farming big chances like they always do. Now, when we take a look at the actual numbers here, Mbeumo 0.91. Remember, one of those was a penalty, so about 0.7 of that is a penalty. Visser with good numbers, 0.86. Schmodix, 0.61. And then we're coming down to Collins, obviously that one big chance. Delap only plays 17 minutes. 2 shots, 0.39 expected goals. Nearly got the equaliser when he hit the post. Phenomenal stuff. So, good numbers. Outside of that, I was really impressed with Lewis Potter from an eye test perspective, but I don't want to be looking at him as a consideration. Vandenberg, another non-glamorous player, but I still think if you're building a wildcard team, this is the 4 million man to go for, because the fixtures are okay long term. He's playing 90 minutes. He ain't going to get you big returns, but I still think this is probably the guy to go for. Outside of that, I don't really think there is much else to talk about. Brentford defensively bad. If you own Flecken, I just don't see where the clean sheets are going to come from. But, I mean, 11 shots here for Ipswich in this game. Nothing incredible here. But I do think that in this team, you can pick up Visser, you can pick up Mbeumo, you can pick up Vandenberg 100% in your teams. And I think you could do very well with them long term. Quickly one on Man City, because I know we need to talk about Man City, but we have spoken about them already, but we'll have a little bit more. So, look at this. Look at this. 3.21 expected goals for Man City. And 2.39 of that was Haaland. The next best was Matheus Nunes at 0.31. So this was literally Haaland versus Southampton. Like, honestly, like, outside of that, look at the shot volumes. 3 for Kovacic, 3 for Foden, 8 for Haaland. Shots on target. There was only this many blokes that had a shot on target. And some of those were Ruben and Akanji. Those would have just been little headers. So Haaland was just everything in this Man City team. And that is something that we do need to remember if we're going to be selling Erling Haaland as part of this wildcard strategy. That if Man City are going to continue to win games, Haaland's going to continue to score goals. I know he had his blanks in a row, but he still put up okay numbers. And when he's put up numbers like this, it just puts in the back of your mind, remembering that the bloke's going to score goals continuously. He's going to continue to score goals. Just a quick reminder of the lineups here. We had Matheus Nunes interestingly come on the left-hand side, and we had Savio on the right, which was quite interesting. Savio, a player that I'm not looking to buy at all, but if you look at Savio here, 5 attempted assists, very interesting. A player that I think is going to be very hard to own in the game, but could be one of those that has a big return at some point. But look, we spoke about it. If you own Erling Haaland, you absolutely just got unlucky, and that is what it is. The fixtures coming up. That's a tough game, I think, Bournemouth away. I don't think that's easy. That's a great game. That, based on the projected points, looks fantastic. I don't know. I really don't know on that one. And again, Forest at home, I think that needs to be changed a little bit. I don't think that's as easy as people think. Everton Fulham, I'm just not going to touch on. I really don't think there's anything really to touch on. Look at this. 0.83 expected goals for Everton, 1.18. I mean, I watched this game, and I think anybody that sat through this game deserves a reward because it was dreadful. Everton were awful. In terms of expected goals, Beto, with his big chance at the end there, gobbled it up. Like, look at that. Beto had an XG of 0.54. Okay, 0.54. Everton's total XG was 0.83. Okay, and Beto came on in the 81st minute. So for 81 minutes, Everton's expected goals was 0.3. That just sums up how horrific Everton were at this game. It was absolutely appalling. Smith Rowe, interestingly, with 0.45 expected goals, quite interesting there. One for those that still own him. And we've spoken about Raul Jimenez in depth. Continues to be a brilliant option with these underlying numbers. And he's just a really good, well-rounded asset. You can see it here. 4 shots, 3 attempted assists. Game week 8, 4 shots. Game week 7, 5 shots, 3 attempted assists. If he isn't delivering in terms of the creativity, he's delivering in terms of the goal threat. So Raul Jimenez is just going to continue to be a brilliant pick. And with the fixtures coming up, Brentford, Palace, Wolves, Brighton in game week 14, I really do think there is a lot of value to be had with Raul Jimenez still. And I still think we can trust him to an extent, and generally Fulham themselves. So good pickup still. So that's a bit of a coverage on the games. And I think that is going to be me kind of over and out. We've done an hour. I want to quickly recap on how this wildcard team is looking, because of course I'm going to wait to see what happens in terms of today's games, because obviously if Mo Salah injury happens, then it is what it is. But this is looking very, very possible. I'm going to be honest with you, this looks really, really possible for me. Obviously, based on the numbers that we've read out and the numbers that we've discussed and the fixtures, I think we can deem that Cunha is absolutely locked in. I think Raul Jimenez, based on the numbers that we looked at, is pretty damn essential. The big one could be Solanke. One thing that we could do easily is just bring in Wood and just accept what we've read, and the numbers look too damn good. So Chris Wood could come in if we get the confirmation that he's fit. And that isn't a bad fixture at all for him, where he's gobbling up all of the big chances in this Forest team. It could easily look something like that. But the wildcard is absolutely on radar. So, guys, we're going to do a quick 5-minute Q&A before we wrap this up. So please do fire off anything in the chat and we'll get it done. As always, thank you so much for tuning into this. But let's get through some of these questions, and I'll be super interested to know what people are thinking in general. What direction are you looking at going with your teams? And if you need any stats put up on your screens, just let me know and I'll pop them up for you. So let's see what we got here. Garvinho saying, decent wildcard, but still think the Saka, Son, Palmer and Haaland drafts are stronger. Salah is an awkward price point to get to. I've 4 free transfers for next week. We'll use 3. Yeah, I think that's fair. I think that's absolutely fair. But I think if you want to be aggressive, Mo Salah for these upcoming game weeks looks so damn good. I mean, this looks brilliant for Mo Salah. And I just don't think you can build a Son draft right now with him being out injured, coming back, injured once again. We just have no guarantees about how he is actually truly fit or not. Josip saying Raul is a must. And yes, I do think at his price point, very hard to ignore right now. Callum saying, I'm thinking of bringing in Cunha and Salah. What do you think? Yes, Callum, I think it is a great pickup. We've touched on Cunha's underlying numbers being really good. The fixtures are brilliant. Palace at home, Southampton at home. Long term, they look brilliant. He's a bonus point magnet. I do prefer him over Strand Larsen. And you spoke about Mo Salah. We've touched on Mo Salah. I really do think he's brilliant. Ritwick saying, Vardy to Jimenez for free this week. I don't actually know the Leicester fixtures. Ipswich away is a tough game to get rid of him, but then Man United, Chelsea, Brentford. I don't think it's a desperate sell, but if you are in a position right now where you have no other problems in your team, then I would say Vardy to Jimenez is actually a good move, yes. Jackson and Saka or Raul and Salah for the next 3 game weeks? Raul and Salah 100%. Darius saying, are you Nacho Monreal? Well, that is why on Twitter, we are FPL Nacho, because I got called out a few years ago about being Nacho Monreal. Never noticed it because I've always had Luka Modric. I've had Peter Crouch. I've had the works. But I looked at Nacho Monreal and thought to myself, it ain't great, but it ain't bad. I'll take it because there's a lot worse out there. I've even had Sean Longstaff. Google that one. You'll be very, very gobsmacked at that as well. Maybe I'm just a bit of a love child of everybody right now. Sean saying 63 points on a 1.4. Wow, what a score that is. With 5 to play today. Sean, absolute cracker that is. I love seeing those big weeks where you have those monster returns. Absolute quality. FPL Harry's Army saying, Game Week 10 wildcard is not an easy one. Yeah, Harry's Army, I'd be really interested to know your thoughts. Just generally, people's thoughts who have maybe jumped in right now. Just to give you an update. Wildcard is absolutely on the radar. I'm just going to put it out there. Wildcard is absolutely on the radar right now for Game Week 10 because for those that are wondering, I just do not like my team going into Game Week 10. And I really think I can be quite aggressive with the wildcards still available to go for Mo Salah for 3 game weeks and then look to pivot towards Bukayo Saka in Game Week 13 because I truly don't think that the next 3 game weeks Bukayo Saka is essential. I think we're all talking about Arsenal triple ups in Game Week 12, but at home against Nottingham Forest, I don't necessarily think is an essential time to bring in a player like that. So this is how the team is currently looking for those that are interested in a potential Game Week 10 wildcard. And just to give you an update on why I've gone for this sort of selection, no Erling Haaland. If I'm going to wildcard in Game Week 10, I have to go all out. I got to go balls to the wall. Got to go without Erling Haaland to bring in Mo Salah for the next 3 game weeks. And the team will look something like this. Game Week 10, I think, looks great. Game Week 11, I think the team also looks great. Yes, we got no Arsenal, but do I really want Arsenal away against Chelsea? I think it's a good fixture, but I also think that is a fixture you can also go without Arsenal for 1 more week. And I think the team looks good for this game week with no transfers required. Then coming into Game Week 12, just to give you an idea, the team will look something like this with 2 free transfers available. And what I was planning on doing is selling Robertson for Saliba or Gabriel, depending on the price point, to bring in the double Arsenal defence, and then doing Solanke to Ollie Watkins for those brilliant next 4 games that they have here. Now, the big thing that we need to remember right now is that a lot of people are talking about in Game Week 12 going to Bukayo Saka. But if you own Cole Palmer and Mo Salah, honestly, guys, let me put a quick poll. Okay, let me put a quick poll in here. Who would you not have for Game Week 12? Salah versus Southampton, Palmer versus Leicester, or Saka versus Nottingham Forest? who would you not have for game week 12? Let me know in that poll, because a lot of people are talking about going for a wildcard in game week 12. I personally think double Arsenal defence is more important than that of bringing in Saka. So let me know in the poll, because game week 12, if I've got Cole Palmer and I've got Mo Salah with those brilliant fixtures, there's no world where I'm selling either of those for someone like a Bukayo Saka. It just makes zero sense. And that's why I think actually waiting one more game week is the route to go for someone like a Bukayo Saka. So I would make those moves, Robertson to Saliba, and then obviously I would make the move of Solanke to Ollie Watkins potentially, but I also would argue there are so many other fantastic options. We could easily do something like originally it was going to be Solanke there. If I reset the game week, this is how the team looks without the transfers. We could easily do Dominic Solanke out for another forward in the game. I do think Ollie Watkins is probably still the one to go for, but there are plenty of options available around this game week, and already having Cunha, already having Raul, I do think Watkins is a great option for that week. And as I mentioned, then getting rid of Robertson for someone like a Saliba or a Gabriel. I know Gabriel scores more, but I personally actually don't care between Gabriel and Saliba that much. Team would look like this, which I actually think looks really, really solid. Raul will come in for Johnson there, and I think that team looks pretty decent. And I can see the poll agreeing. Which one would you rather not have? And everybody agrees. You'd rather have Salah and Palmer than that of Bukayo Saka at home against Nottingham Forest. And then when we come into game week 13, this is when Saka would come in for Mo Salah. So you've got the 3 game weeks of Mo Salah, and then you're bringing in Bukayo Saka for arguably the time that you actually want him in. So this is why I think being aggressive with the wildcard in the week that I've discussed is the play that I really want to go for. I can still keep my Spurs assets because I think everybody's going to move away from Spurs, but I think then in game week 13, there's opportunity once again at home against Fulham. Johnson could easily come into this team for Raul, who plays away against Spurs, and the team looks like this. Obviously, Saliba would come in for Van den Berg, and I think that team looks great. I've got my triple Arsenal. I'm just doing it 1 week later for Bukayo Saka, but if it's Mo Salah versus Saka, I'm taking Mo Salah every day of the week, and it frees up funds in the bank at 2.7 million for me to slowly start to create an Erling Haaland team in the future. So those that are interested, wildcard is absolutely a consideration right now. And if you guys are watching this right now, let me know your thoughts. Like, what do you think the negatives of me wildcarding in this week? Because when we take a look at game week 12 and the fixtures, let me just bring it up on your screens. If we take a look at game week 12, because that is when everybody's telling me to wildcard. Here is the fixtures based on difficulty on your screens here. So, Aston Villa, I've showed you my plans. I could easily get to Ollie Watkins as part of a free transfer for game week 12. Bournemouth, yes, but outside of Semenyo, do I really care about Bournemouth? Personally, not. Chelsea, we could easily avoid Ollie Watkins and go to a Nicholas Jackson. But if you've watched this stream, you will know that I have really, really gone into detail about the cheaper forwards. And can I really see myself in game week 12 wildcarding with Nicholas Jackson and Ollie Watkins while avoiding Cunha, while avoiding Raul, Jimenez, all of these great players? I think the answer is going to be no. I know Fulham start to drop to the bottom here, and maybe there is an argument, but do you not want Raul Jimenez for Wolves and Brighton at home? I think you still do. So then outside of this, who are we really targeting? Brighton, with all of their attackers, good luck picking one that has guaranteed minutes in that team. Then we got Wolves. Well, we already have the Wolves in our team for the better fixtures that they have in game weeks 10 and 11. So then outside of that, Newcastle I have no trust in. Spurs, I've capitalised on them. I can get rid of the ones I don't want for 12 and keep them for game week 13. And then Arsenal, I don't think are essential for attacking assets for the Forest game. I don't see them scoring a hatful of goals. So that is why I am more tempted by going for the game week 10 wildcard rather than the game week 12. Let me know your thoughts. But of course, I haven't obviously addressed the situation that there's no Erling Haaland. And that is the massive thing. But if you're going to wildcard in game week 12, then are you also going to keep Haaland? Because then if you're going to keep Haaland, you might as well get it. if you're not going to keep Haaland, you might as well get it done now. You might as well get it done now. So, of course, I'll update you guys if I make any moves. I may even do a stream this evening. If I am going to activate my wildcard, I'm going to obviously let all the games happen, because those that don't know, we still got plenty to play. We got Chelsea, Newcastle, Palace, West Ham, Arsenal. Loads of games to happen. So make sure you are subscribed, because there is a solid chance I will jump on a stream this evening to give you guys an update and a potential wildcard activated team. And that could be very interesting for those that are maybe looking at it. So make sure you do drop the like on the stream. Make sure you do, of course, subscribe. That'd be massively appreciated as always. I'm going to dip off now because it has been about an hour 15 and I do need to get out for a dog walk. So have an amazing day, guys. Take care. Make sure you are subscribed to the channel to tune in this evening for a potential wildcard active. And hopefully, for my team's sake, we get a hat-trick from Eze. Because, yes, I am one of those managers that still owns Eze. Have a great one, guys. Take care, and I'll see you very, very soon. Thank you once again. Cheers.